Zant has been popped like a balloon by Midna, but his words still remain. We now know that Ganondorf has been pulling the strings this whole time and was revived. So with Midna's ancestors' power, we reach Hyrule Castle and shatter the barrier. And now with nothing blocking our path into the castle, let's see what you couldn't miss one last time. As we enter the castle courtyard, it is looking very gloomy and is teeming with enemies everywhere. Seeing the front door locked, we understand that we need to fight our way through the courtyard to get the key. However, weirdly enough, anytime we attempt to fight a small group of enemies, we get trapped in a circle and are attacked by an onslaught of enemies. While many will assume this is Ganon's power in trapping Link, this circle is actually created by Link, who decides to not let any enemies escape to keep Castletown safe in case they would flee to it. Many entrapment circles later, we finally make it to the location of the key, but unfortunately, it is guarded by our rival, King Bublin. Just as we have done before, we defeat him again in battle, but this time he gives us parting words. He tells us he only follows the strongest side, and that it's all he's ever known. And while many will just assume he means Link has now surpassed Ganondorf in strength, clearly this is not the case, because if he considered Link the strongest, he would follow him instead of leaving after the battle. What must have happened is while fighting Link, King Bublin felt an aura stronger than Link or Ganondorf in a land other than Hyrule, causing him to go on a journey to find that aura so he can continue his ideology of following the strongest. As soon as we get inside the main sanctum of Hyrule Castle, we notice a distinct lack of methods to enter many rooms of the castle, only a tiny little platform with stairs and nothing else. This is fine for Link as he is able to grapple from chandelier to chandelier, but how would the Hyrulean family utilize this room? One theory is that this room was just used to hold meetings with the nobles and was never intended to be the entrance for the family. But the more likely scenario is the royal family are all proficient in utilizing the claw shot, and as soon as they learn to walk, they also utilize the claw shot to access their castle. After clearing the lower castle, we exit and are attempting to find the key to make it into the upper tower until we get ambushed. Surely Link would have died here, but luckily we have the resistance rush in for the save at the last moment. However, did the resistance really just get here? It seems almost too convenient that they would have saved Link at the last moment like they seem to do. What must have happened is the resistance knew these enemies were planning to ambush Link and wanted to capitalize on it to make themselves look better for the hero of Twilight. They did this by saving him at the last moment, and while it's understandable they want Link to see them as indispensable, if they made one wrong move, Link would have been toast. As we enter Hyrule Tower, we are instantly attacked by phantom rats, but more importantly, as we remove the rats, we see spirits of the soldiers pointing us to the correct path to continue up the tower. While lower in the castle we saw similar soldiers pointing us towards switches, having a group of them working towards one goal must mean that they have a leader. The identity of this leader is hard to pinpoint, but if you think back to what we have seen earlier in the game, it must be Rutella, as she is the only spirit we have seen in the past with a connection to the royal family. Right past the group of soldiers, we come face to face with a pit in place of a staircase. While the castle being in disrepair isn't surprising, the fact that this pit is bottomless definitely is, especially considering it's directly above the main sanctum we traversed minutes prior. The way this pit works logically, unfortunately, is a terrifying thing to realize. This pit must be the doing of Ganondorf utilizing the power he learned from Zant to create a bottomless pit, making Ganondorf more formidable than any of us originally thought. As we finally make it to the top of Hyrule Tower, we finally catch up with Ganon, but before we are able to fight him, he decides to Puppeteer Zelda, forcing Link to fight against her. This is a good strategy for Ganon to employ, but definitely not the most moral. However, what's odd about this fight is that as opposed to the Puppet Ganon fight in the Wind Waker, Zelda is on no strings. So this brings up the question, how is Zelda being controlled? With the movements Zelda is making being almost one-to-one with the ones Ganon would make if he was attacking us with his Phantom, this must mean that Ganon is using his own body movements to control Zelda, and the only place he could do this and see the battle would be from one of the windows on the roof. Meaning odds are, some people in Castletown are seeing what they would only assume is to be a madman on top of Hyrule Castle making extremely odd movements. After Zelda is rescued, Ganon's only ploy to stay out of the fight is lost, which leads us to the first phase of the fight. As it starts, Ganondorf seems to harness the same power Link uses to turn into Wolf Link to transform into Beast Ganon. Though, when this transformation occurs for Ganon, it's clear that Ganon's anger is amplified and his mind goes cloudy. This is seen by him not attempting to hide his glaring weak spot, and in how Ganon will rush Link down with only a single plan constantly, until Link finally shoots some sense into him, causing him to start the dodge. Though, with this analysis, clearly the most affected part of Ganon by transforming into this form was his IQ. After Ganon realizes the downsides of being in beast form after getting suplexed by Midna, he decides to ride on a beast instead of becoming one. This phase of the fight involves chasing down Ganondorf or getting chased by Ganondorf, all while attempting to give Zelda a good shot with her light arrows. However, weirdly enough, when Ganondorf lands a good enough blow onto Link to knock him off Epona, instead of finishing the job, he decides to stop and stare at Link. This is odd, especially considering how ruthless Ganondorf was towards Midna right before the phase began. The only thing I could imagine Ganon freezing for is the one fear every man has, the fear of realizing one's fly is down. Clearly Ganon noticed that his was down during the whole horse riding segment and froze in horror. With no more tricks up his sleeve, Ganondorf decides to finally face Link in one-on-one combat, and with Link utilizing his entrapment circle, there's no way Ganondorf is going to change tactics for the 5th time. This fight shows that Ganondorf's skills in combat are amazing and honestly the most formidable aspect about him so far. However, the most menacing factor of all is the fact that Ganondorf is utilizing the sword he was previously impaled with. This detail, however, no matter how cool it is also Ganondorf's undoing. The name of this sword is the Sword of the Six Sages, and clearly shares its look with the sages from its namesake. If this sword was created with the purpose to specifically seal Ganondorf in a similar vein to the Master Sword, why would this sword ever be okay with being utilized by Ganondorf? The sword in defiance to the one it desires to seal clearly slowly was sucking the power out of Ganondorf the whole fight, and by the time Ganon realizes this fact, it's too late. And that is the end of Twilight Princess, what you couldn't have missed. If you enjoyed, do what feels right for you.